Hey everybody, I'm Connor, this is Doug, and welcome to Give My Regards to Podway, a podcast that celebrates the pomp and splendor of Broadway show tunes. In this episode, we'll deconstruct the seductively upbeat songs of cabaret, take a closer look at the terrifying feline crooners and cats, and devote 525,600 minutes to the brilliance of the musical Rent. And as a special treat, my co-host Doug has agreed to perform a freestyle rap about the history of Bethel in the style of Hamilton. And
Connor, I'm not throwing away my shot to interrupt you this week because this is not that podcast. This is the Bethel School District Presents, a podcast about the Bethel School District. On this week's program, we're talking about our dual language program. We're talking about how they're changing reading education at Nelson Elementary School, and we're going to touch base with our equity department. But first, we have to talk about All Bethel Community Day. That's right, ABC Day was this past weekend, and I was having the best day. I mean, there's professional wrestling there. A Black Hawk helicopter literally landed in the parking lot. I was beaming, and then I looked over, and who did I see?
I'm sorry, Doug. I know you like your alone time. I know you see me every day all week. But what was I going to do? Miss out on ABC Day? No, not likely. But while we're talking ABC Day, what was your favorite part of the day?
That's a tough question. There are so many different things to choose. I was walking the hallways, just looking at the different displays, and then a horse walked by. That's not something you normally see in a high school, and it's just so bizarre. That's my favorite part of ABC Day is just the unexpected. How about you? What made the top of your list?
Well, the Black Hawk helicopter was definitely up there, but I also love the interesting people you run into at ABC Day. I actually saw some pirates.
Arg, this will be Captain Dagger of the Point Defiance Pirates. We're out here at ABC Days having a blast, all the kids and all the wonderful people.
I saw those guys, the Point Defiance Pirates, all dressed up and ready to party. I also saw a lot of kids dressed up in superhero costumes for the superhero parade. That was awesome. And of course, our first responders were there, members of the military in uniform, and that's always a great thing for the community.
Hi, this is Courtney Thompson with Central Pierce Fire and Rescue, and we are just so excited to be out here for ABC Day, seeing all of the community, the kids, the families. Thanks for having us out.
What an awesome day. It was the 12th annual All Bethel Community Day. We can't wait for next year's event. Mark your calendars. It's happening October 7th. 2023.
You know, one thing I saw at ABC Day that surprised me, I saw a lot of books. The Pierce County Library was there. There were a lot of tables that had a lot of reading material for kids. And that's awesome. Teaching kids to read is so important, and it's tricky. It's a tricky business. Staff from Nelson Elementary School actually presented to the school board recently. They talked specifically about teaching reading to kindergartners through second graders. They also talked about equitable opportunities for all students. Here's Principal Tammy Nelson.
The work our teachers are doing at Nelson, they are putting systems in place to ensure that all students are receiving the supports they need at the level and service support that they need. It doesn't matter if they're in a special program or not. It means all students achieving those essential standards.
When Tammy says all students, that is a broad group. You have students who find learning easy and others who struggle. Now, we all learn to read early on, but we don't often remember how tough it is until that light bulb finally clicks on.
And it's not enough to say, this is a great book, I'm going to expose you to great literature, and you're going to learn how to read. There's much more to it than that, and they need to figure out how to decode.
That's first grade teacher Kristen Tyler. Her reading instruction has changed recently, along with her former teaching partner, Brandy Concepcion. Brandy now teaches third grade, but her son actually helped her change her way of teaching, which actually helped all her students.
My son was diagnosed with dyslexia after 2 years of kindergarten, first grade with a wonderful teacher, a mother who was a teacher, and a good reading teacher, but he just wasn't making that growth. And so we really came together to try to find out why. Why was he not making that growth, but why were other kids not making that growth? And what we came up with in the research that we found is that with a good teacher, 60 to 70% of all students are going to learn how to read with any reading instruction there is. But what about that 30 to 40% that aren't? What about my son, your son, or your daughter? Those were the students that we were concerned about.
And so they made these changes. They're a little actually too specific to get into here on the podcast, but the data they've gotten shows that the changes are helping not only the kids who are struggling, but students at all levels.
Now, when you say it's too specific, can you at least give us an example?
I was actually hoping you'd ask. Here's Kristen again.
I was going to show you real quick one of the phonological awareness skills that we do in our classroom. So I'm just going to do a couple with you. Say Fred. Fred. Now say Fred, but don't say F. Do you see? I have to think about that, right? And these are our first and third graders that are doing this. Say shrub. Now say shrub, but don't say shh. So this would be a higher phonological awareness skill. It takes about 1 minute. We do it every single day, 2 to 3 times a day. And that's really helping to build that automaticity with really thinking about sounds and phonemes. We've seen that growth, and that along with everything else we've done has been pretty amazing.
That exercise actually kind of tripped me up during the meeting. It really makes your brain think differently. But the thing I want you to remember is something that Kristen summed up perfectly.
Teaching is an ever-changing art, and we love to learn along with our students and how to best do our jobs so that all of our students succeed, every single one of them.
Nelson Elementary was the first school to present at a school board meeting this school year. Throughout the school year at board meetings, schools come and they talk about something that they're working on specific to their school. It's a really, really cool part of our board meetings.
And coming up after the break, we're going to talk dual language and equity.
It's time for shout outs here on the show. If you want to shout out a coworker, a friend, someone you know, your kid's teacher, we want you to email us communications@bethelsd.org. Just record yourself on your phone any way you want to. If you record video, we're not going to use the video, just the audio. Send it to communications@bethelsd.org, just like these folks.
Hi, this is Chelsea Rambo, the social worker at Evergreen, and I want to shout out the entire Evergreen staff for being welcoming as I joined their team this year.
Hey, my name is Veronica Kaipanen from Pioneer Valley Elementary. Huge shout out to my staff who are always ready right at the get-go to support our students that need that extra support. You know who you are, and I love you.
Hello, my name is Christine Padot. I'm the Family Resource Coordinator at Challenger High School, and I would like to shout out Danny Stanford and Echo Abernathy with Community Connections. Also, Jure Brower. Anytime I've ever need anything, I could just pick up the phone. I get it within a day or two. They're amazing, and they've served so many kids at Challenger, so I'm really grateful for them.
Once again, if you have a shout out you want us to share on the show, communications@bethelsd.org.
Hola, Doug. ¿Qué sabes de nuestro programa de inmersión bilingüe en español?
Hang on a second. I didn't know you spoke Spanish. What'd you just say?
Well, my monolingual friend, I ask you what you knew about the district's dual language Spanish immersion program.
Honestly, I don't know a whole lot, but I hear good things.
Well, that's okay. Let me fill you in a bit. So, our dual language program's been an unmitigated success. It began more than 6 years ago with a single cohort of Thompson Elementary students. To keep up with ever-growing demand, the program actually expanded in a couple ways last year. First, we introduced dual language to our youngest learners in transitional kindergarten. We also followed the first group of students to middle school at Spanaway Middle. I recently had a chance to sit down with Anna Wells. She's a dual language teacher at Spanaway Middle, to speak with her about the expansion, how it's going, and why our dual language program has become so popular. So our district uses what's called a 90-10 model as students start in the program. That means in transitional kindergarten and first grade, roughly 90% of the students' instruction is in Spanish and 10% is in English. As students transition to higher grades, more of the instruction shifts to English, 80-20 in second grade and then 50-50 in third grade and beyond. So how does that look once they reach you in middle school?
I think the biggest thing about middle school that differs from the elementary school program is that it's more focused on academic language, and there's certainly academic language in the elementary level as well, but they're just kind of building that language knowledge baseline, and now they have this really strong baseline, so it's like, let's push you further into, instead of just conversational or just like casual talk, let's get you up to the point where you can talk about these academic concepts with the correct vocabulary, the correct like knowledge of the content as well. But by the end of 8th grade, our goal is to have them be biliterate, and there's a test they're going to take called the STAMP test, and it checks their proficiency over all 4 domains: reading, writing, listening, and speaking.
Learning science is hard enough in your native tongue. I'm guessing it only gets more difficult in the foreign language, what with all the new vocabulary words and such. How do you address that?
I teach science, and for my dual classes, we only speak Spanish. It's 100% Spanish in this science class. All their tests, all their vocab, all their lessons, it's all in Spanish. But then they will have like ELA with another teacher, which is in English, and they'll have electives in English, and I believe math is taught in English. So it's about 50-50. Humanities, Spanish language arts, and social studies and science are all taught in Spanish, and the rest is in English. But in terms of vocabulary, especially for our Spanish learners, learners. They're all cognates, which means they're like very similarly written and sound very similar in both languages. So that is very helpful. For example, for 6th grade, we're doing microbiome. And so like microbiome in Spanish is microbioma. It's one letter different. So they can kind of see that mirroring with the cognates, and that helps a lot with language development.
The school year's just getting started, but what are your initial impressions of your students? How are they shaping up?
They are extremely intelligent, and sometimes they'll like pull out vocabulary that I've never heard, and I studied Spanish for a total of like 8 years, and so sometimes they have, or these cultural contexts, because I was missing that since I didn't grow up with Spanish-speaking family. So they're just extremely intelligent, extremely aware. They're very curious about other people's like backgrounds, other people's cultural experiences, which I think is a plus as well.
So we've talked a little bit about how the dual language program works and kind of what types of students are taking it, but why do you think it's important that we even offer programs like this?
For those that are learning Spanish, I think it really does open up a lot of opportunity for higher education, careers, but it also just helps the students become more global citizens. These students, in my opinion, are highly respectful, but curious at the same time about everyone's life, everyone's cultural background. So I really think it helps to make a cognizant and global citizen for all the students involved in the program.
Thanks for chatting with us, Anna. Good luck the rest of the year.
Great interview. You know, just last month, Washington's Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction, that's OSPI, announced that Bethel had been awarded a $50,000 grant to plan, build, and expand the capacity of our dual language program. It's great information, and it really speaks to what we're doing here in the district as far as equity goes. You know, at a recent school board meeting, we had a study session where the board heard from our equity department. Equity can be a bit of a buzzword, so to break it down, the department helps students feel more connected with their school, peers, and teachers. It also helps staff navigate important conversations in regards to equity. Deb Carlin's our Equity and Achievement Department Director, and she said equity should have a seat at every table because it's always in play.
Being a strategic partner in all the different departments and having a seat at the table is really valuable. And that's happening more and more as this department grows, and I can only want more of that.
Our district has 33 equity teams across the district and at all of our schools. Equity specialist Will Waverly said these teams help focus on their school, its staff, students, and the building's culture.
You develop the capacity in the equity teams because they're the ones in the building all day. So you develop their capacity, you develop their training, their know-how, and then they're the ones leading those movements in the school.
To keep things moving forward, our equity department brings in outside trainers for our staff, and equity specialist Darius Alexander said once they leave, the equity specialist can step in.
It's a partnership because now that she's gone, the relationship part comes on us. So, and that's where Will was talking about where we've been able to build those relationships. So it's the staff members aren't looking to the trainer that came in. Now they're coming back to us and saying, okay, from that training I got, here's the nugget I picked up to take into the classroom. Here's the person I go to figure out how I implement this nugget because that person understands the culture of this school.
Boy, I'll tell you, we packed a lot of information into this week's show. I can barely remember what the start of it was.
Musical stuff.
That's right. Hey, what's your favorite Hollywood movie turned musical? Mine is, of course, Beetlejuice. How about you?
Did they do one for Rambo First Blood Part 2?
No, I don't think they have. And before we start doing impersonations of 1980s movie action hero actors, I think it's time to get out of here. Next week, we're talking with Pierce County Deputy Vicki Morrison about her work here in the Bethel School District as one of our school resource officers. We'll see you then.
It's over! Nothing is over! Nothing! You just don't turn it off!